begin to paint a real picture of them. You've watched all those movies where you see investigators put pins on everything to find out about people. That's what you want to do. That is the most important thing you can do prior to an interview. All right, so be an investigator. And the tactics are the things I just showed you what you should do about them. When you created that picture about the individual, you suddenly feel emboldened because you now have a decent idea of what they want and what they're looking for. Prior to an interview, this is all the pre-interview work you've done. Then just before the interview, begin to map out what you want to say to them. What's your punchline? I'll give you stories to back it up. It's not just pure theory, it's practice, things that I've done myself before. Prior to an interview, you also want to make sure that you're very relaxed, especially very close to the interview. You've eaten well, you've visualized yourself getting the job. I mean, honestly, deceive yourself if that's what you want to call it. But it does not do you any favors if you think you're not going to get it. Don't bother with statistics that tell you how hard it is to get that job. Do you know they interviewed? It is not your business whether 10,000 people were on the line and there's a job for one person. You can be that one person. Someone is going to get the job and that person can be you. So don't bother with numbers. Don't bother with any information that does not help you prepare for the session. Because I found out that that happens very often, especially people who want to go into graduate school programs in big schools or want to work for very large companies like Shell and KPMG. Forget about data that does not serve you well and just focus on data that helps you improve your position. That's all you need to do. I'll give you an example of when this pre-interview worked out very well for me. It was with a company called KPMG, the consulting practice. I looked at everything, knew the department they wanted to send me to. And in fact, here's another tactical tip. I asked who will be interviewing me. Some companies will give you an answer, some will not, but there's no harm in trying. I did find out who would be interviewing me at all those sessions. I not only looked at the company, only looked at the team, but looked at the individual. And so I could prepare myself. A lot of companies, especially their bigger companies, the first person who's likely to interview you is a recruiter, usually a low-level recruiter. At a low-level recruiter level, all they want to be sure of is that your resume makes sense, that it tallies with what they were expecting. So when they call you, the answer is almost necessarily yes. They just want to confirm it because they want to go back to their bosses and say, this person checks out. They don't want to hear anything that makes them worry about the application. So as much as possible, don't go around those things that would confuse them. Focus on your focus. Focus on saying you're correct. This is about right. Reinforce the information they have and give them things they can use to summarize why your application is strong to their own superiors. That's it. What's in it for them is that they need to make sure they have not brought in a bad candidate. At the next level for a lot of organizations, you'll probably interview with a mid-level person or a potential colleague. What's in it for that person is they're looking for someone they can jive with in the office. They're looking for someone who'll be a partner, who'll be able to help them. If you have that kind of thought process and you've looked at what's important to them, start thinking about interviewing in that frame. That's what I did even in my stages of my KPMG interview. The big one is when you finally meet the hiring manager. And that's the person who has the ultimate power to hire you, whether it's a household or a driving job. You need to find out what matters to that person. I'll give you the case for KPMG. I was speaking with a partner who was head of public sector there. Right now, he works for the presidency. His name is JT. Just on my way to the interviews with him, I had read in the newspaper about then the president, the governor of Lagos State, Fashola, had just said that folks in Lagos can only charge for 1 year of rent. Now, given that he was public sector partner, I knew that he would care about policy positions. So when I was going into that interview room, I knew for sure I was going to ask him about his impression of Fashola's changes in rent in tenancy policy in Lagos State. The second I brought that up after we had our core interviews, questions, and he asked me to ask him any questions, he just went on and on. And then he said, Steven, you know what? If we keep talking about this, we'll go on all day. I knew I had gotten the job. There was no need because I just looked at what was in it for him. That is why you want to investigate the people as much as possible where the opportunity is provided. If it's not provided, of course, you just do your best guess. So that is pre-interview. Now, get into the interview. I often suggest this to folks a day before the interview, relax, rest, eat well, sleep well, get there very early. Why do you want to do that? Because if you are not well rested, you won't be at your best. Rest as best as you can. Eat, you do not know whether the interviewer might be late, stuff might happen in that place. A hungry man is an angry man, and that applies to women too. If you have health conditions, you really don't want to be faint. There might be places that don't offer food and drinks, and there might be nothing nearby. Then why do you want to also get there early? Folks always think about it from the perspective of the employer. All those things are true. But we're talking about interviewing like a pro, not like the average minion. You want to show up early because you do not want to be nervous. You don't want anything to unnerve you. It's better to show up early and if you have a car, sleep in your car, go to the receptionist, ask if there's a back corner. It's worse for you if you are nervous about being late. It's better to be too early and not be very comfortable sitting on a chair for 3 hours. There's another part of it, the psychology of just a space. I'm having this session with you. It's about 5 a.m. my own time. You understand? There are things that just so I freshened up. I freshened up because it just helps your mind. I always wear a wristwatch because no one's asking me for the time, but it puts me in the right frame of mind to make sure that I am ready to present and deliver. So there are things in your life that just help put you in the right mood, and you want to do those things. So that's why you want to prepare for those things. It's not because of the person interviewing you, but for yourself. Now, when you get into an interview, the goal of the interview is to ensure that you are liked and respected. Many people think about the liked part, they forget about the respected part, but we're here to talk about interviewing like a pro. You want them to like you. That is obvious to everyone. But there are folks that you like, but you don't want to hire. You want them to see you as valuable to them. Remember, what's in it for me? You want them to see you as if you just join my team, my life will be that much better. If you join my organization, if you walk to my home, anywhere that place is, we will be the better for it. So you want to make sure it's both liked and respected. That's your goal. Now, what's your strategy in that session? Now we're at the interview. You want to become a therapist. Remember, the first time you were an investigator. Now you're a therapist. Now, what are the key characteristics of a therapist that you need for this session? Therapists have all sorts of characteristics, but you want to be an avid listener. Many people don't understand this trick. We love the sound of our own voices. We love when people agree with us. Your interviewer is no different. So you want to make sure that you're listening to exactly what they're saying. You want to do something we call mirroring. That means looking at their mannerisms and their gestures. You're not going to copy them like for like, but match their energy. If the person is a little more mellow, don't go around shouting. If their voice is higher, they're boisterous, you want to increase your energy, even if it's early in the morning or late in the evening. You want to mirror them. And then when they ask you questions and when you're responding, you want to use words that are not too dissimilar from theirs. For instance, if someone says, mm, tell me if you are a hard worker, you don't go around saying, well, as a fastidious worker. Yes. You probably want to say, I've always had the history of working really hard in my family, in my business, in my organization, in my church, in my mosque. You want to use words that are similar to theirs because people like to hear themselves. People are fine with you mirroring them, even when they know you're mirroring them. The only time people don't like you mirroring them is if they think you're trying to manipulate them. That it's amazing. It's like you can be, they will know you're playing the game on them and it will still work. As long as they don't think you're trying to manipulate them. And when you think of manipulation, is that you're trying to steer them the wrong path into a place that is not good for them. But if you're mirroring them and they see it as a basis of making your own point, they're fine with it. Just mirror them, be with them. It's coming to their level, whether it's higher, lower, that's what you want to do. It's an important thing. But you can't mirror them if you're not listening. You can't mirror them if you're not paying attention. You can't mirror them if all you're thinking about is what you are going to say to them. And so that's how you work as a therapist. Don't forget you studied them or you studied the organization. So you probably already have a leaning as to what is important to them. And so your conversation will flow with that. Clearly, you're there to talk about the key things that make you a strong candidate for the job. But now, because you did your investigation, you're speaking about your candidacy from a place that matters to them. For instance, let's say you're working in a bank. You might know that, for instance, First Bank did a huge write-off. They gave off a lot of bad loans more recently, and they just wrote it off. If you go into a First Bank interview and you're being hired as a marketer, they might care about marketing. I mean, yeah, they want to get in more deposits into the bank, but in the short run, I'm not saying this is what First Bank is doing, but in the short run, what might be important to them is that they give out good loans. So that your same profile of saying I have strong customer relationships, your interview can go something around. I have good insight as to who people, the kind of people that pay and don't pay. Because you've understood what First Bank has just gone through and what their current focus might be. Your punchline is even tied to the situation that's in front of you. Your punchline can also be tied to the individual. For instance, if a person has just been promoted to a senior manager position and they're hiring for that position, once you've just been promoted, you're still just trying to find your footing. You want people who are with you, who pay attention to you, who can help you very quickly. But if you've been in that role for a long time, they probably just have a gap they need to fill. So what you're saying to them might change depending on that situation. So remember, be a therapist. The tactics in there is mirroring. Mirroring is very important. You've tailored your punchline to them. You still want to speak less. I know it's counterintuitive, but you're here to interview like a pro. Reduce how much you speak. Let them do all the talking. I've literally been to an interview where the interviewer didn't realize that he spoke 90% of the time. And turned around and said, Stephen, I love that candidate. He loved the sound of his own voice. And the person just gave him enough to help him keep talking. And he loved it. So only respond as much as you need to. Keep egging them on. Let them keep telling you what matters to them. These are not the tactical beats that folks, especially in Europe and North America, do, but I've noticed that we don't do that much in Nigeria. And even when I was in Gabon with Salt, ask them two questions if you have the time. One is, why did you choose to call me? I mean, the reason you ask that question is if someone had read your resume or gotten your referral and called you in, there was some potential positive value they saw in you to decide to call you in. Now, when you make them answer that question, they've just reinforced why you're the right person. People can't help themselves. You ask me, why did I call you? The person automatically needs to think of positive things about you. So you can double down on what they think is positive when you ask them that question. This is a tricky tip, but it tends to work. If you're not sure how the interview went, you can ask a variant of this question, which is, I've really thoroughly enjoyed myself interviewing with you. Are there any gaps or concerns I have not addressed? Many people leave that on the table. They're afraid of bringing it up. But guess what? The person, if they already had something they were concerned about, they have it. You not talking about it is not going to help the situation. So you just say, hey, madam, I've thoroughly enjoyed this interview. I looked at the job requirements. I think I meet everything. Is there any other requirements you think I haven't sufficiently expressed as to why I'm able to deliver on it? More often than not, people will pause and they might tell you something. Or they might tell you, yeah, no, the process is fine. But the reason it's a good question, even in a country like Nigeria where folks are a little more hierarchical, it's hard for someone to come back to you and say, you didn't get the job because you're not a strong candidate. That's why I asked you first during the interview. It's an opportunity that a lot of us leave on the table. That's how you interview like a